Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Since the news of the unmarked graves at the Marieval Residential School was announced, many survivors are speaking out. One survivor from the last generation to attend the school tells us how the recent discovery is affecting her. Priscilla Wolf brings us that story.
The emotions that I'm feeling right now are just exhaustion. It's so good to be a Nahio person, but it's very difficult being an Indian right now.
Sequin Ahenakew briefly attended the Marieval Residential School because of a fire.
I didn't go there by choice. Our house burned down on my First Nation community. And when something like that happens, it's devastating and you really have no place to go to school, or you do have a place to go to school, but you don't have a place to live. So our only option at that time was to attend the residential school.
Ahenakew's parents both grew up in Saskatchewan.
So my dad is from the Atakaku Cree Nation, and that's in the Treaty 6 territory, north of Prince Albert. And he married my mother, who is from Pipewat, but her mother married into Kansas, and so that's the Treaty 4 territory. So we had family in Kansas at the time.
Her father didn't attend residential school and was able to speak his language that he passed on to his children. Sequin's first language is Niawewin.
They just couldn't get over the way I spoke, and they just wanted me to talk Cree to them. And these particular girls refer to themselves as lifers.
As a fourth or possibly fifth generation survivor, Ahenakew says she felt the effects of intergenerational trauma by the lack of a relationship with her maternal grandmother, who was a long-time student at Marieval Residential School. She says she didn't know how to comprehend the indifference of her grandmother, who was a cook at the school while she attended.
Your grandmother was your world, your mother was your world, and then I had the opportunity to see my grandmother in the South, in Kansas, when I attended the residential school every day. She served us food every day and was indifferent, as I passed by with my food tray. And, I used to wonder where the bond was.
Now that Ahenakew understands intergenerational trauma and the conditioning that her grandmother went through, it makes sense.
She told me that her experience was great. She didn't have encounter anything. And I took it as it was at the time, but now reflecting back, I think that already by then the lifestyle of a lifer has been so ingrained in her. It was so ingrained in her that it became the norm. The trauma and everything became the norm.
Ahenakew says the discovery of 751 unmarked graves at the Marieval Residential School is upsetting. Yet she thinks it's only the beginning.
The number is higher. We'll just never know, because then there's also the situations where the students were sent to places like the TB hospitals and the ones that were put in incinerators.
Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The National Indian Residential School crisis line is available for survivors and others who might need support. That number is 1-866-925-4419. Today, Prime Minister Trudeau responded to the findings of the unmarked graves. He offered an apology to both the people of Kansas and Treaty 4. He was asked if the site should be treated as a crime scene and whether a police or international investigators should be brought in. Trudeau responded that his government would take direction from First Nations.
Stay focused on. So they will be put at the center of all of our steps. I've heard some people say you should just go in with bulldozers and dig them up and find out exactly what happened. These are people's grandparents, great aunts, great uncles, loved ones. Respect for them, understanding their wishes, their desires. Yes, for answers, for closure, but also for dignity and respect.
Well, in the wake of the discoveries of children's remains at several former residential schools, a number of online fashion companies are being accused of trying to cash in on the tragedies. Sarah Connors has those details.
In recent weeks, a growing number of online clothing ads displaying the Every Child Matters logo have sprung up on Facebook, touting the message as a fashion statement, like this dress, which is advertised as a sexy print V-neck.
I have major problems with somebody profiting off of something like this.
Andy Everson is a Northwest Coast artist from the Comox First Nation in BC and the creator of this Every Child Matters logo. He says the logo is free to use, but shouldn't be used for profit.
It really hurts. You know, I don't make any money off of this personally. I did this with good intent, and I expect everybody that sells these shirts to do it with good intent as well.
He's also concerned the clothing is hurtful to survivors.
And to capitalize on such a devastating part of our history is unconscionable.
It's really hard not to get really upset.
Maynard Johnny is a Coast Salish and Kwakwaka'wakw artist. He's angry these companies are profiting off Indigenous artists' work.
So they're not only stealing from an issue that has been far too long kept quiet, they're stealing from artists as well, the designs, and printing them on these shirts and selling them and profiting from the death of these 215 children.
Information about these companies is scarce, like where they're based out of. They did not respond to my request for comment. I reached out to Facebook Canada, who say they have launched an investigation on some of the ads. They say the ads and Facebook posts were removed for violating community standards for inauthentic behavior, meaning they have engaged in conduct like falsely boosting their popularity or using fake accounts.
These companies that are ripping off artists and ripping off the initiative of the orange shirt should be fined, and all profits should be given to some sort of Indigenous organization that will help heal.
Everson advises people looking to buy this type of clothing make sure profits go back to Indigenous organizations, not someone's wallet.
It's not enough to just wear an orange shirt. It's important to give back to those survivors and to the work that's being done for residential school survivors.
I reached out to the Orange Shirt Society, who weren't able to do an interview by deadline. However, they did tell me they are angry about the ads, and they will have a copyright and branding policy in place in the next few days. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Following the discovery of graves at the Marieval and Kamloops residential schools, communities across Canada are deciding how to celebrate Canada Day this year. In Nunavut's two biggest communities, the celebrations are going to be very different than before. Here's Ken Driscoll.
Canada Day is usually a pretty big deal in Iqaluit. Last year, Iqaluit couldn't celebrate due to COVID restrictions, so the city put a band on a truck and sent them to the people. Sheila Flaherty is an Iqaluit city councillor. Last night, council decided to hold subdued, smaller events on July 1st. No parade, not a full stop, but an admission that something is off this year.
Option one was to cancel Canada Day. Option two was for the city of Iqaluit to offer more intimate celebration, festivities, activities geared toward family and children. So we went with option two.
Over in Rankin Inlet, it was the fire department that made the decision. They will not host a parade on Canada Day as usual, because many of their volunteers are the children of residential school survivors. Flaherty's mother went to residential school, and she interviewed elders about their experience with her. The elders told Flaherty that her mother helped protect them at school.
Back in 2006, when they said that she protected them, I was like, oh, isn't that nice? Like my mom, you know, in her nature was protective. But since Kamloops, I've come to meditate and think about what was she protecting them from?
Iqaluit has a recreation committee, and they'll eventually decide what counts as a subdued event. Flaherty explains why she voted to scale back.
There is something drastically wrong with Canada. It's a lot of people are mourning, a lot of people are grieving. and we need to respect that.
So, something will happen in Iqaluit on Canada Day. Things designed for families, smaller events. Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
Prior to the Marieval school discovery of 751 graves, Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole took aim at those calling for Canada Day to be cancelled in the wake of the discovery of graves in Kamloops.
I can't stay silent when people want to cancel Canada Day. We are not a perfect country. No country is. There is not a place on this planet whose history can withstand close scrutiny. But there is a difference between acknowledging where we've fallen short. There is a difference between legitimate criticism and always tearing down the country.
O'Toole made those comments on Wednesday. Now the Conservative leader says he wants the Liberal government to commit to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls related to the finding of unmarked graves. And he says that should happen ahead of Canada Day celebrations as a, quote, show of support for Indigenous people. Coming up after the break, we'll continue our interviews with the candidates for the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Stick around. Welcome back. A Migma lobster harvester has finally gotten his fishing gear back. That's after it was seized last fall by the Federal Fisheries Department. But he says his gear is damaged and he wants to know what happened to the lobster. Angel Moore brings us that story.
This fishing gear has been sitting in a federal fisheries compound since last fall. Matt Cope of Millbrook First Nation has been trying to get it back for months. This week, Cope unloaded his gear. He was shocked to find damaged traps and the ropes cut.
Traps aren't cheap, ropes not cheap. When they're taking it for months at a time and then all of a sudden just giving it back, but it's all damaged, there's no way we can fish like that.
Cope harvests lobster off the coast of southwestern Nova Scotia, asserting his treaty right to fish and earn a moderate livelihood, protected by the Supreme Court of Canada. Cope was charged for fishing out of season and without a license last fall. DFO seized his gear.
Well, I'm pretty determined to prove to them that it's our right. That's what we agreed to 300 years ago. We've been upholding our end. It's our right to fish, and I'm going to keep fishing.
Cope says his community is supportive. Chief Bob Glode said in a statement, DFO continues to act in bad faith towards our community at a time when Mi'kmaq First Nations are working diligently to develop and implement community harvest plans with proper input and guidance from our members.
My main concern here is how they stuffed all the ropes in the traps and stretched all these heads here. Now I'm going to have to go back and fix all those.
Cope says the DFO seized 62 of 72 traps. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans said in an email statement, the traps were returned in the same condition as when they were seized, and the remaining traps will remain in custody as they are part of an ongoing court case. The department did not say what happened to the lobster. Cope says the catch was worth about $7,000 and plans to file a complaint.
I want to know how much lobster is in that traps, and as far as I'm concerned, every day that they had those traps, they were fishing right in their compound. And I want the same amount of lobster that they had there. I want the equivalent of that for every day they had my traps.
Cope says he will harvest lobster again as soon as his gear is repaired, and he is to appear in court July 18, 2021. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Millbrook First Nation.
Quite a story. Well, the race for National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations is well underway. Following 2 terms at the helm, Perry Bellegarde has decided not to seek a third 3-year term. APTN News has been speaking with all of the 7 candidates vying for the job ahead of the July 7th virtual election. Joining us today is former Muskowekwan First Nation Chief Reginald Belrose. Reginald, thanks for being with us. For the past 17 years, you've served as chief for Muskowhegan First Nation. Why have you decided to run for national chief of the Assembly of First Nations?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's been learned a lot over the last number of years at the band level, at the regional level. Did some work nationally as well, and what I want to do is bring this First Nation level experience, which is tough being a band leader. It's tough at the band level. There's a lot of demands, low on resources. So I want to bring the skills, the knowledge that I've learned over the last almost 20 years, bring it to the national platform and seek the support of the Chiefs of Canada.
Reginald, what do you see as the priorities for the next national chief?
Well, with the findings of the unmarked graves in Kamloops and the Cowessess First Nation Residential School, the unmarked graves, the Truth and Reconciliation, Article 71 to 76 that calls that let Canada know that these graves were there. Those articles need to be refreshed and modernized because now they need to be put into action. The Government of Canada needs to fund and needs to support the impacted First Nations with the sites. And then the community healing, the community supports is going to be a long-term, long-time project. It's not an easy venture. It'll take a lot of work. So with that being front and center, there's that rights and jurisdiction, the jurisdictions of the First Nations, whether that be hunting, fishing, trapping, our rights are being infringed upon and encroached upon. So we need to take a stand, and Ottawa needs to stop transferring authority, jurisdiction, resources to the provincial governments without our consent and without our authority.
Reginald, what are some of the big issues you're hearing from leaders out there?
It's what I'm promoting across the country is a common agenda with the united vision. Is the Chiefs of Canada need to come together now, especially with the unmarked graves. We've got carrying the Truth and Reconciliation pamphlet. I've got a Treaty 4 belt here that talks about for as long as the sun shines, the grass grows and rivers flow. That is Treaty 4. We have to focus on what the Creator has given us, what our ancestors have given us, and use all that we have, our rights, our lands, and our jurisdiction as competitive advantages in education, business. Gaming is another example that's very important, the share of gaming revenue with First Nations, child welfare, Bill C-92, writing and implementing our own laws. There is a lot of work that needs to be done, and from my experience working at and leading at the band level, I'm able to understand some of it. I have a lot to learn as well, and one person can know it all, but you know, as a chief, you're always dealing with competing, complex issues. And you have to learn to manage and navigate through all of that.
Reginald, we'll have to leave it there, but we appreciate you taking some time with us and wish you good luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
And you can find profiles on all of the candidates over on our website, aptnnews.ca. Well, the National Art Gallery has a new look. That story and more coming up after the break. Welcome back. Time now to take a look at our photo of the day. And this is another beauty taken near Petrie Island, just east of Ottawa by Doug. Just kidding, Greg. It was taken by Greg Scriber, as most of our photos were this week. This one was taken at sunrise on the summer solstice. Our thanks for sending in all of those photos this week, Greg. And Bruce apologizes for the name mix-up. I believe he even gave you a ring. We're always looking for a photo of the day, so email what you have to share at aptn.ca. and we'll do our best to get them on the air. Let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 24 for St. John's, 26 in Charlottetown. A high of just 3 with showers in Inukjuak. cloudy and 25 for Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Rain and 24 in Montreal. Rain and 20 for Chibougamau. Showers and 21 in Sault Ste. Marie. 1 degree warmer with rain in North Bay. 24 for Thunder Bay. Rain and 26 in Sioux Lookout. 18 with showers for Churchill. Rain and 24 in God's Lake. Showers and 27 for Winnipeg and Dauphin. 26 and sunny for Regina. 27 in Saskatoon. 28 in Uranium City. 29 for Buffalo Narrows. In northern Alberta, 29 in High Level. 31 for Grand Prairie. 28 in Edmonton, sunny, and 29 for Lethbridge. Sun's out and 30 for Vancouver, 31 and sunny in Victoria. 33 for Prince George and Fort Nelson, 35 in Smithers. 23 and showers for Old Crow, 24 in Whitehorse. 27 in Yellowknife, 31 in Wrigley. +3 with rain for Sax Harbor, 25 in Fort McPherson. 11 with showers for Arviette and Whale Cove. 4 in Resolute, 2 in Igloolik. Well, some exciting news in the art world. Following 4 months of consultations with Algonquin elders, the Ottawa-based National Gallery of Canada officially revealed its new Indigenous-led image overhaul. The National Gallery's new branding is inspired by the Anishinaabe word Ankosi, meaning everything is connected. As part of their makeover, the museum is changing its static red logo to an animated one inspired by the Northern Lights. Elder Albert Dumont sat on the museum's advisory council. He says the change is long overdue.
And the National Gallery is taking a bold step. The leadership here is taking a bold step in what they're doing, and they're saying we're going to decolonize the National Gallery. And you don't know, I don't think you have any idea how that impacts my heart. You know, as a poet and as a pen and ink artist, it's a very it impacts me in a very profound way.
Nicely done, Albert. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Friday. For news anytime, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and be sure to tune in tomorrow at this time for APTN National News Weekend. Thanks for being with us today and all this week. It hasn't been an easy one. I'm Dennis Ward. Take care. Have a good night.